So I'm going to get us started with a welcome this morning and sort of a little overview of what we are going to do or what we're hoping to accomplish. We're talking, first of all, goodbye to 2020 and hello to 2021. None of us know what 2021 has in store for us, but I think with sort of shifting our perspectives, we have the ability to really sort of think about 2021 in a different way and really sort of hold some space for not letting what's going on outside of our personal interpersonal worlds really impact. And yes, there's loss and there's change and there's shift from the way that we saw life before the pandemic to how we're seeing it now. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. And so I just kind of want to set the tone for this, is that we have some personal responsibilities in terms of goal setting and visioning and envisioning who we are and what we have going on. And so when we talk about goal setting, I really want to talk about not only the mechanics of it, because I think many of us have seen the lists in particularly SMART goals and, sort of that black and white, very linear look at goal setting. And we don't put a lot of feeling into it. And so I think that this gives us an opportunity. It's a little bit of a shift for us to really think about our goals for ourselves personally in terms of not only the tasks, not only the end result, but the feeling that goes along with that. So as we go through today, we're going to talk more about that. So we're going to talk about goal setting in and of itself. We're going to talk about the life wheel, which was up on the Facebook group and went out to folks who reached out and said, I don't have Facebook, but I'm really interested in this. That was there as well. And the life wheel is something that I use when I do coaching with folks. It really gives a good snapshot of how you're feeling at this particular time, what level of satisfaction you have. And it sort of starts to funnel down what it is that you're looking to improve on. And some people, so we're going to talk about the life wheel. We're going to talk about some key questions that go along with the life wheel to really start funneling down where it is that you are and what it is that really kind of fuels you. I look at goal setting and particularly vision board as sort of not completely that sort of the thing that I'm reaching for, but it's also that thing that what fuels my soul and what gives me purpose and what am I striving for that sort of aligns with that. For many years, for me personally, it has been about the journey of building businesses. And I've had some failures over the years. I've had some really good successes in the last few years. And for me, it's all about that feeling. And so when I really think about 2021, it's how do I take things to the next level? How do I do that both interpersonally and business-wise? And how do I do that as a steward in my community? So all of those things matter. And that's what the life wheel does. It gives me that place to make a choice. Am I going to work on the things that fuel me that I'm not really satisfied with? Or am I going to then take it to the next level of I'm pretty satisfied with this area of my life, but if I just did of a tweak, I could do much better and it'd be way more satisfied. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to do an envisioning exercise. And I love to do envisioning exercises and intention setting. And then Dawn is going to take us through what a vision board looks like and how we actually do that and how we maneuver through that. So without further ado, let's talk about goals in and of themselves and sort of where we start with this process. And for me, it's about understanding the science of our brains and how our brain intrinsically wants to have some goals. It wants to achieve something. Think about the way that we feel and how good we feel when we've actually achieved something, and what that actually looks like for us. And we've all heard the stories of manifesting and people taking, like, I want to win $1 million. And then all of a sudden they have financial security. Maybe they haven't won $1 million, but they have financial security. How does that happen? Well, that happens because our brains are able to take that subconscious goal that we create and then move it to find opportunities where it can achieve that goal. So with that said, part of the basics or the basis of doing a vision board is setting some goals for yourselves. And we've all sort of seen well, maybe not all, but many of us have seen sort of that corporate style of SMART goals, and they have to be specific, measurable, there has to be action associated with them. With what we're talking about today, I'm not really certain that that's true. We can be a little more loose with it, because it's that overall picture is what we're looking for. And then deciding, do we measure that by a number on the scale, by a number of calories that we consume, or steps that we walk, or a number in our bank account? Or do we measure that by something that's a little more intangible, like the feelings that we get? So I see we've got a couple more people who have joined us. So I want to say good morning to Marie, and I think Lori, I'm hoping that Lori got on, and it looks like Annie is here. So I think that we've got some folks that have joined us. So we're going to start this morning by looking at, and I'm just going to show you, screen sharing from Zoom to Facebook Live is an imperfect science at this point. So I'm going to, or at least for us it is. So I'm going to show you the life wheel. This was actually put up on the Facebook group, and you may or may not have downloaded it. When you rate these domains of your life, I mean, these are pretty much the biggest domains that we have in our lives, although there is a blank one of these that's available for you to create your own domains. I don't want anybody to feel like they're pigeonholed into these. There are some questions that I want you to ask yourself. And if you have done this exercise at this point, there's 3 questions to be asked. What is important to you? What of the criteria is important to you? When I ask you, when we start to do the envisioning process, and I start to ask you things like, how do you envision yourself 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now? What criteria is really important to you? That's something that you might jot down. Why is the answer important to you? Why does it make a difference how you answer the question of what's the criteria? Why is the criteria important? Well, it's important because it allows for you to start to find that foundation of yourself. And it starts to give you a basis for your awareness. The next part of the life wheel is to decide what to do with your new awareness. So are you going to pick an easy area for you? Like I was saying before, is this a place where you're going to say, wow, in my relationship with my spouse or my partner or with my kids, I'm really satisfied. If I did just a little tweaking, I would be super excited and I would not want to change a thing. Are you going to take the easy win, which is fine? Or are you going to choose something more like, my financial house isn't exactly where I would like it to be. And you're going to take the harder, more laborious task and set that as the goal. So this is where you get that visual of how you're going to work and what's going to be important to you. Now, none of that, what I've just said, comes with judgment, because the easy win gives you that, sometimes can give you that really good internal feeling of, hey, you know what? I have an easy win here. I feel really good about it. I want to move. I want that win to motivate me to do the harder stuff. And that's okay with me as well. And it should be okay with you. Do I have any questions? So I've kind of gotten through, I'm going to move through this because I really want you guys to be able to see Donna's work around a vision board and how you sort of start to incorporate the goals, the specifics, and the feelings that come with it. So if I have any questions, I would love to hear what you guys have to say at this point. Did anyone do the life wheel and have something that sort of struck them that, oh, wow, this, I didn't expect this to come up? So I'm going to share my own. I don't have mine that I have done, because I do this when I work with clients. I do this about every 5 to 6 weeks when I'm working with clients, and for myself, I do it about the same process. So what I found, like, there's a lot of things that I realized that, you know, where I wanted to work, or where they would be in my satisfaction. One of the areas that I was really unclear about, that was a surprise to me, was the environment. And I didn't realize that I was unsatisfied with what I knew, or what I wasn't doing myself, and that there was a level of importance to me. So the wheel is helpful to have that visual. I'm a very visual person and need to be able to see what things laid out, I guess, is the best way. So, all right, so I don't see any comments at this point, so I'm going to move on. What I would like to do is go to the envisioning exercise. So those of you who know me, and there's some new faces here, so one of the things that I do is I'm a meditation instructor. And so I'm not really going to take you guys all through a guided meditation, but I'm going to take you through some grounding exercises. And I find it really important to sort of take a few moments and ground yourself when you start working on something like this. It's not something that you kind of should go into just sort of jotting down as you're running out the door. It's something that I would set aside some time for. And so I'm going to move us through this fairly quickly, in terms of how you would do it, but feel free as you do this on your own to take the extra time to really ground yourself, really start to see what things look like, and definitely journal about it. Your ability to take what is intrinsically your foundation and what means something to me, sort of your mission, taking that, translating that to goals, translating that to a bigger vision board, and then working on those goals instead of thinking about it as a resolution, actually thinking about it as that action plan, is really helpful to have those moments of journaling. And if you're doing it with a partner, and you have common goals that you're working on together, it's also a good place when you do that journal exercise to see where your commonalities are, but also to see where your differences are, because we all come to our relationships with various ideas and various thoughts about what is important. And what is important to me may not be important to my husband or my business partner. And when Donna and I talk about doing these workshops, what's important for me to achieve in the workshops may not be important to her. And so it's a good practice for a healthy relationship and healthy communication to be able to do those things. So I'd love for you guys to take a moment and just wherever you're sitting, just kind of plant your, or if you're standing, just kind of plant your feet on the ground. Take a moment and sort of straighten up and just kind of straighten your back. You can drop your gaze if you want. Take a few deep breaths in, just allowing the breath to kind of settle your entire body. Allowing the air and the breath to nourish you. Really feeling the pull of the earth on the bottom of your feet. Grounding you right down, almost like it's roots. And with your gaze dropped or your eyes closed, take a moment to envision who you are today. See all of those qualities about yourself. The good, the bad, the neutral, the things you want to change, the things you want to stay the same. And then compare that to where you were a year ago. Allowing yourself to give praise to those areas that you've achieved, and not judging and not beating yourself up for the areas that still need some work and are still developing. Remembering that we don't cajole a child for not being able to say their S's. We work on that. We help them. We pull them along. And now, while you're still following your breath, look out 6 months from now. What do you want to see? What are the things that are important to you most immediately? And now go out a year. And what about 3 years? Allowing yourself at each step of the way to just notice the things that you want to improve on and celebrate the things that you've accomplished. And when you're ready and you want to come back into the here and now, start to journal, focusing on the not too specific things that you really saw as you envisioned your life. So perhaps what you're looking for is, I want to be able to run a marathon. It's very, very open. It's not specific. We can allow the universe, we can allow life to take its turns and its twists to see that goal and that dream happen. There's action that you take to achieve, but there's also some sort of looseness that we can have to it. Perhaps you want to say something as simple as, I want to live in a healthy environment. But what does that mean? Does that mean that you have more plants in your house? You do more plantings outside, you create a garden. Maybe it's a neighborhood garden or community garden. Perhaps you want to rid the world of pesticides. Whatever that looks like and whatever is important to you. And as you envision your future, add to it things like, how do I want to feel? How do I want to spend my time? What does the world look like to me? Because as we raise those vibrations, as we raise our consciousness, we can have a bigger impact. Each one of us has the ability to do that. Part of the next steps of goal setting, particularly when you're envisioning, is sharing the vision with someone you trust, whether that's a parent or a partner, a spouse, a trusted friend, a coach. It starts to lead to some life in that particular vision that you're creating for yourself. Some accountability goes along with that. It's taking the time to carve out moments in a day, but as you start it, as you end it, to really see yourself in that role. Some people will take and carry it, that vision, that statement that you're going to write for yourself, in their wallet. Some people will post it on the fridge. And then definitely add it to that vision board or vision wall or vision room, depending on how you look at that. So this is a practice that I think all of us, and we specifically, Donna and I specifically chose today as being the day that we would do this particular workshop, because the new year allows for us to really sort of sit at home. There's very few things to do unless you're going to get out into the world and take a walk or take a hike or go for a ride, whatever it is that you're going to do. But it's also a time that we are sort of closing the door to the past. We're looking towards the future. We have some hope for what it's going to look like and how that's going to be. And so we get to really sort of take that time that maybe we don't always do. I think it's a really good practice for New Year's Day, is to really sort of think about what the future has in store for you, and envisioning this is a perfect place for that. All right, so any questions, any thoughts, anything anyone wants to chime in and say? I want to give you guys the space to do that here. I know I'm taking you through it quicker than what you would do on your own.
MJ, I have a quick question for you. First, Happy New Year.
Same to you, Lori. So nice to see you here.
You as well. You had mentioned earlier the life wheel.
Yes.
Where would I find that?
So on the Facebook group, there is a link to it. Donna's got some of her blog posts that she's done, and there's 3 PDF downloads there. The life wheel is one of them, but I'll show you what it looks like. So, and if anybody has a hard time finding it, just let me know and I can always email it to you. It's like I said, it really, when I was thinking about putting my coaching business together, this is like the foundation of how I work with people, because it gives me a really good snapshot of the things that are going well, the things that are sort of neutral, and the things that people may choose to improve upon. And some people don't. You know, some people look at the wheel and go, you know, I don't care enough. I mean, we'll take environment, for instance. I don't care enough about environment. I'm you know, not satisfied with things, but it's not going to be my priority. So I can't stress enough when you're doing this is to be kind with yourself, because some things come out that you may not be aware of, and you may not be looking for. So I think it's really important for us to remember that kindness starts with ourselves as well, because we tend to, as humans, we tend to be really hard on ourselves and judge what we think of as a failure or an inadequacy. Right, so I am going to move on to setting intentions. So intentions, when you take your envisioning and sort of that one statement that you have about yourself, so you do your vision, your visioning, and you come up with your own personal vision statement or mission statement. So if we are talking about, let's see, financial gain. So my mission statement is I want to not have to worry about having enough financial stability that I can pay the bills. A pretty generic statement. The question becomes, when I set my intention, is how do I actually give back for getting that? What am I going to do myself? What's my exchange going to be? So the easy answer for that is I'm going to work. And so that is my action. I'm going to work. But then you can take it deeper and go, well, what does that look like? Am I going to work 90 hours a week, or am I going to work 20 hours a week? Which one of those do I want? And if I don't work 90 hours a week and I only work 20 hours a week, how is that going to affect me achieving my mission? So as you're moving through the vision board, the envisioning of yourself, ask yourself, what is it that I'm going to do to energetically or physically act in order to achieve that mission? So this starts being like those action steps. So what are we going to act upon? And what I can do is I can actually, we'll add another 2 sheets after today's workshop before or when the replay goes up, to sort of help you guys with that, with the envisioning process, as well as with the setting the intention. So I know what Donna's doing for an example of the vision board, and we're going to get Donna back in here pretty quick. So what she's working on is setting a vision of living a healthier life. And so what I'd like to do here as we transition to that is to set an intention to that. So if after I've envisioned myself and I've grounded and I've done that work, if what I see is I want to live a healthier life, that's my statement. So what are my actions? What am I going to do to create an environment rich that I can then achieve that mission? So this is a place where you don't want to have pages upon pages of like, I'm going to eat kale 3 times a week, and I'm going to drink 100 ounces of water every day, or like my overachieving son, I'm going to run 11 miles on Christmas Day. Because mom's not doing that. I love you and I want to be healthier, but I'm not running a marathon. So what is it that you can do in a little more generic terms than be that specific to attain that goal? For me, when I think about living a healthier life, I look at myself and go, well, let's see. If I look backwards, I can say I'm stronger, I'm more active, and I feel healthier than I did even 3 years ago. Is there more improvements that I can make? Absolutely. So I'm going to take what I've done and build upon those. And so what does the future look for me if I look out 6 months, a year, 3 years? Well, that looks like I'm going to cut back on some level of my sweets. I have a wicked sweet tooth. I'm going to keep my emotions healthier. So I'm going to bring in that mind piece. I've brought in the body piece. I'm going to bring in the mind piece. And I'm going to take some time for me. So I'm bringing in my spirit. All of those things, I'm not specific about what I'm going to do, but those are the actions that I want to take. So if I was really going to think about this sort of like the corporate person as well as the spiritual healer person, I would be thinking, okay, I'm going to marry those two worlds because right now I am talking in more global terms, but everything I do should be led from that place. Make sense to everybody? Do you have any questions? Okay. All right. So now, Donna, are you there?
Yep, I am
Okay.
here.
So we're going to turn this over to you, my friend, and I'm going to have you pick up because the vision board is the fun part. This is the creative piece. This is what's going to motivate and fuel you as you move forward in your goal setting. And then we're going to open up, when Donna finishes this piece of it, we're going to open up to some questions and some interactive conversation. So, all right, there you go, Donna.
You. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Happy New Year. And actually, we're going to start making this fairly interactive right away. So if you're comfortable either putting your video on and unmuting yourself, that would be great because then you can just kind of jump in and chat. One thing, so you're aware, I've had to completely rearrange so that I could get to my whiteboard here. So if you see me looking off this way, that means I'm looking at my monitor so that I can actually see you or see who's speaking. So I'm not trying to ignore you, and I'll try not to turn my back to you as I'm writing on the board. So good, we have some faces here. Oops, and I'm going to disappear just for a minute. I'm going to assume that MJ is going to look to see if anyone needs to get readmitted if they get kicked off
I
or
will.
the chats. Okay. MJ's just led us through a lot of things, and to get us started off, what I would like to do is just start to get our energy moving. I've just kind of been standing here or sitting. And so I invite, if you feel comfortable, and you can turn your camera off for this if you want, I won't, but just stand up, or if you're sitting and just comfortable, and just do some movement. Let's just kind of get ourselves flowing a little bit. I just call these my moving meditations. And it's kind of
that actually feels really
letting
good.
that energy out. And I love doing this several times a day if I'm starting to feel real tensed up or anxious. This morning, I felt the anxious energy of trying to get ready for this. And you may find as you're setting your goals and thinking about what you really want in life, you're going to start asking yourself the question, why did I think that was a good idea? This morning, I was texting with my brother in Massachusetts, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. And he says, well, what are you doing today? And I said, I'm doing a workshop today on goal setting. What was I thinking? And that happens frequently, happens for me. Hopefully it happens for you. I'm gonna look, is anyone nodding their head? Yes, that happens to you too. Nick, you ran 11 miles on Christmas Day. At any point during that run, did you say, what was I thinking? Hopefully, maybe. I love to run too, so sometimes you don't, it just feels so good. But just moving, just releasing some of that energy. I encourage you to do this because it just allows you to open up to kind of the magic that comes when you're not focused on, where's the magic, where's the magic? Deep breath, everyone. Okay, so vision boards, as MJ was talking about, this is that connection between what we want and the emotions of what we want. And I found a treasure getting ready for this. I found, let's see, can you see this? This was my dream journal that I created in 1999.
Oh, wow.
January of 99. And it has a lot of pages. I had actually used this one year, probably January of 99, and created dreams. And I remember I had created a vision board for 5 different goals that I wanted to achieve. And when I rediscovered this journal, probably, I know it was when I moved to my condo here, so it was within the last 10 years. And I started looking through them, and some of them I had achieved, and others I said, why would I even put that in there? And one of them was a trip to Egypt. And that was because my ex-husband wanted to go to Egypt. And sometimes we think we want something and we claim it as a goal and a vision, but we have to be careful that it's not what someone else wants. And it's okay to work towards those joint goals, joint visions, but you won't feel that true heart connection unless it's something you really want. So that's just kind of a word of caution. So the one page that I did keep in here was the first page. And I shared a quote from Henry David Thoreau: "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined." And it starts with having that vision for what the life is you want. And then I wrote my own little kind of cool poem. And I said, I just made the connection here too. It was, I dare, okay? I deserve to have my dreams come true and am able to make them come true if I am ready to commit time, energy, and resources. I can experience the dreams of my life. Deserve, able, ready, experience, dare. So then I put, I dare to dream. So that's kind of cool. Your vision board, what is it you want? So MJ talked a little bit that we are going to start with living a healthier life. January 1st, so many of us, we say, yes, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to get healthier, I'm going to do this or that. I invite you in this moment. Hopefully you have pen or paper or something with you, or something you can write on. I should have mentioned that earlier. But if not, just sit with these ideas. When I ask you to think about what living a healthier life means to you, what comes to mind? Would anyone care to share what comes to mind? First thoughts? Anyone? Anyone want to unmute and share what you think about with living a healthier life?
Taking the time for self-care.
Ooh, that's always a good one. Can I ask a follow-up question, Lori? What does self-care mean to you?
Just taking time for self rather than for somebody else. Does that make sense?
It
Because as
does.
I'm doing this, I'm feeding the dogs. You probably see me moving around.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my cat to come down and start meowing at me.
I'm running around doing everything and trying to find time to just settle down and just be for yourself rather than everyone else.
Now, let me ask you a question, and you don't have to answer this one, but I just put this out there.
Okay.
Do you ever find yourself thinking that self-care is someone else's definition of self-care, and someone tries to impose what they think self-care is onto you? So that,
I don't think personally I've had that, but I know what you're speaking of. I don't think I've personally experienced that.
Okay, well, that's good, because maybe you have your personal boundaries set up. Frequently, you'll hear someone saying, oh, and I won't use this example because that would be like awful for MJ in the spa, because we do massages and stuff, or foot soaks and stuff. But someone says, oh, you should go get this foot soak, this massage, it feels so good. For some people, it's not appealing to them because they don't like to be touched. And so it's allowing yourself to identify what self-care means to you, or anything of what is healthier for you. We can have our doctors and our spouses and our friends and our children and our coworkers and anyone else telling us what we should do to be healthier. But unless it's something that resonates with us and we choose it, we probably won't take much action on it. So living a healthier life, I like to think of it in terms of our physical health. So many times when people start talking about being healthier, they just think of the body. And it's important. It's what keeps us here. It's part of who we are. But we also have to remember our mental health, our emotional health. Can you see that okay? Our spiritual health, and financial health. So today, when I ask you, as we're working through this process, living a healthier life, what's something in one of those categories that you can work on? Perhaps you're really well in the physical category. Perhaps you feel mentally strong. Emotionally, maybe there are some pains that you could heal or release. Perhaps spiritually, you're feeling this void and you don't really know what's missing in your life and you're searching for something. You don't know what it is. Part of your vision for 2021 could be to just explore different spiritual options. And then financially, whether you're feeling okay with your financial situation, but you'd like it to be better, or you're always living on a shoestring budget and going paycheck to paycheck, never seem to have enough. Maybe that's how you want to reframe and refocus your finances for 2021. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions? Okay, so we're going to make it easy here, because doing a vision board, it can be time consuming and it takes emotional energy, and it takes curiosity and wonderment. That's something that's hard to do when you're sitting in front of a video camera. And so respecting that process, I'm going to just take off these ones for now. And let's just play with physical. It's going to be the same process that you would practice for any other area of your life, any vision you have for your life. So physically, we're going to make an improvement. Would anyone like to toss out an area that we could play with for physical health? Any suggestions, or I can grab one? Anyone want to unmute and suggest something? Do you want to suggest one, MJ?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So I have a hard time, like my mother said, I like to run and I like to stay healthy that way. And then I spend every day, as my wife laughs at me as I struggle to touch my toes, and I struggle with doing parts of my physical health and fitness journey that I may not like, but are necessary, especially as I encroach on 30 and beyond.
Don't tell my age, Nick. I have everybody believing that I'm only 34.
No one buys it, MJ, sorry. So things you don't want to do. So flexibility, strength training, that type of thing?
I'll answer. I know you're having a hard time seeing him. He's shaking his head yes, but I know that that's part of where he is.
Okay. So we look at that and you say, it would be so sweet if I could touch my toes. It would be so sweet if I could lift a bus. But you're not there yet. Now, as all of us, we're going to use this as if this is our personal vision. This is what we want for 2021, is to improve our flexibility and do some strength training. So there were two, and MJ, you didn't mention this, but I'll go ahead and talk about it. There are two primary ways that we are motivated as individuals. Some of us are motivated to move away from pain, and some of us are motivated to move forward to pleasure. So with flexibility and strength training, now for you, Nick, and like I said, I enjoy running as well. How do these things impact your running? And when would you choose to pursue flexibility and strength training to advance your running? So here's what I mean. You're running. You're noticing that you're not as flexible. Your body isn't as strong. And when you start to feel that pain and it impacts your running success, that's when you're most likely to start doing some flexibility and some strength training exercises, because you want to be the runner that you are. Is that true? Okay. And here's where we can have a challenge with this as humans. Our brains want just a couple of things. We want to experience pleasure, we want to avoid pain, and we want to be efficient. Our brains have so much to do keeping our bodies alive. They're really focused in on just survival. So when we start throwing these extra things in, like strength training and flexibility training, that we really don't want to do anyway, our brains are going to say, okay, where's the point where it's good enough? And so if we're moving away from pain, let me put pain here. It's showing up on the screen. I don't know if you can see that. And then you're going to move to a point, and you're going to say, okay, this is good enough. And it may be good enough. You have to look forward to what your brand vision is and see if there's more that you can do to bring you to that furthest point. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because when we get to pleasure, those are those emotions, those strong, powerful emotions that we're building this vision board on. And so that's why we want to create it based on emotion, because that's pulling us towards it. So MJ, is this making any sense?
It is, most definitely. So it really is where mind, body, and strength come to, mind, body, and spirit come together, is how we respond to whether we move away from pain or we move towards pleasure. It's sort of intrinsically embedded into us, and it is really getting that understanding of what motivates us to do things. So if what motivates me, all right, so this is a perfect example, and something that I learned about myself this summer. I have had weight loss as a goal for many, many years. I have battled my weight. I've struggled with my weight for many, 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 many years. And I found this year that I could lose weight by working an entire day, not eating until 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then when I ate, it was a whoopie pie. But I kind of fooled myself into going, well, I will forego having healthy food because I can still do it and I can have this immediate satisfaction and gratification of having the whoopie pie. And that's okay with me. So that is a clear movement of me. I'm moving towards pleasure. What I discovered about myself is that pleasure that I'm seeking is an immediate gratification. And the reality is I feel better, my joints hurt less, my muscles hurt less when I eat normal meals at normal times of the day, and I cut out a lot of the bread and a lot of the sugar. But that wasn't my immediate gratification. And so that's being aware of how you move. And because quite frankly, eating sugar causes me pain. I have joint issues, and the more sugar, the more breads that I eat, the more discomfort I have and the more inflammation I have in my joints. But that pain doesn't help me to move away from the sugars and the breads. The pleasure of the immediate gratification of that whoopie pie did. And so I was attaining my goal of losing some weight because I was dropping weight. There's no doubt I have dropped weight in this year, but I've not done it in a healthy way. But I'm now motivated. So now the question is, can I take that knowledge about myself and can I now apply it to something else? Can I say this healthy meal of brown rice and roasted vegetables satisfies me as much as the whoopie pie does? And maybe it doesn't. And maybe my give up is that I eat 1/8 of the whoopie pie. And so I make a whoopie pie last for the entire week. But so I'm hoping that translates really well as to why sort of stepping back, doing that envisioning, sort of centering into yourself is really helpful for taking and learning the next step of who you are as a person and how attaining goals. And that's why resolutions, like, I dislike, I don't want to use the word hate, but I dislike the term resolutions because we're resolving to do something, but it doesn't mean that we're actually like going to achieve it, because we're just resolving ourselves, but that's not intrinsically who we are. So I'm hoping that helps. Marie did send a message. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like that, I think that's my next step in this journey, is that I now have to decide what level of that immediate gratification can I have? Does it have to be the whole whoopie pie, or can I have the eighth of the whoopie pie to satisfy that immediate gratification, but I can then take the next step and have the brown rice and roasted vegetables. I have said for about 6 months that I am ready to move to a much more plant-based diet. I enjoy it when I cook it. I enjoy it when I eat it, but it's a change and it's a shift. And so that's why this is important, knowing whether or not you move away from pain or you move towards pleasure, is understanding what's going to motivate you to attain those goals.
Well, and another part to that, and this is where mindfulness comes in, where we just pause, we stop and recenter ourselves in the moment, is because, MJ, I'm just going to use you as an example.
Yeah, please do.
Pie. Okay, so in the moment, when MJ is making the choice to eat that whoopie pie, she's avoiding some pain, because the whoopie pie is the pleasure. There's got to be some pain there. And so for many of us, the pain is an uncomfortable conversation with someone, or the pain of taking the time and the effort to prepare healthier foods. There's always something that we're moving away from with any decision that we make, any action we take. There's always the pain and the negative, and then there's the positive and the pleasure. So when we use mindfulness, when we stop, and MJ's looking and she's thinking, oh, I really want that whoopie pie because I didn't prepare dinner. She has that opportunity to pause and say, okay, what's a better choice that I can make in this moment? I don't have time to prepare all the food, but what's a better choice than the whoopie pie? And as she was saying, it could be eating less of the whoopie pie. Taking a bite or two is better than eating the whole thing. Sometimes we get caught up in the pain of things that we just want to avoid, rather than experiencing the emotions and the discomfort. This goes to that emotional type healing that I talked about earlier as one of the areas that we could improve our health in. The long-term goal and vision that we have for ourselves, living healthier, is probably not eating a whoopie pie every day for dinner. It is probably enjoying time with our family, being here when we're 90 years old, and being surrounded by loved ones and still being active. And eating a whoopie pie every day will not support that vision.
Right.
And so we have to take that pause and say, oh, what is it I really want? Do I want the whoopie pie in this moment? Or am I willing to delay that or eat less, so that I can advance towards that ultimate goal of being here at 90 and seeing my great-great-great-grandchildren and being able to get down on the floor and play with them. So taking that pause whenever we're making that choice. Am I just kind of trying to get away, or am I moving towards something that can help?
Yep. And so, and that in this example translates across all of our domains. And it actually does well because it starts to integrate. Mindfulness is one of those practices that you build on. It's sort of like getting, I always equate it when I work with somebody as it's training for a marathon. I'm not going out and running 26 miles today. I am maybe doing 26 steps. And tomorrow, maybe I do 36 steps. Mindfulness is the same practice. You build on it and you build your reserves. So if you have to take a 2-week break for whatever reason, you maybe can't run 26 miles, but I bet you can run 18. So it's the same kind of thing. You build that longevity. So the more you practice it in one area, the more it translates into other areas. So we'll go back to the vision board.
So when you're creating a vision board, you have your categories, something that came from the wheel of life that you would like to focus on and work on. One of the great ways to start is just doing a mind map, because sometimes MJ and I were talking about this the other day. Neither one of us actually really uses vision boards, because a lot of times you see the ones that look like a collage, and they've got something here and something there, and they've got pictures and they've got words, and the fonts are all different. Because the traditional way to do a vision board is to cut pictures and words and phrases, quotes out of magazines and books, mostly magazines, But then it looks like a kidnapping ransom note to me. That's what I always think of when I see the words on vision board. And if that's not appealing to you, there are other ways to do a vision board, but you need to start with that sense of clarity of what it is that you want. And so the first thing is just do a mind map. And if you're not familiar with what mind maps are, this is just very basic. You're going to put your main topic, that feeling, that word that you're striving for, and put that in the center. And then you're going to write anything that comes to mind off in their own little bubbles. So if my word is flexible, so we'll go back to Nick's running. What does that mean to be more flexible? It means stretching, means feeling relaxed and toned, less tension. How would you say less tension in a positive term? So be more pliable? I mean, without using flexible as the word. I'm not sure. So I'm gonna put a question there. But
I think pliable is good. I think more pliable.
is that an I or a Y?
It's an I.
So you'll just go around and just whatever comes to mind. Now, if you have a word, you're thinking about your finances, you're thinking of freedom. So what does that mean? Does that mean having a percentage over what you're currently have for income to have for disposable income? Does it mean your retirement funds? Just drop down all of your words. And then what you'll do, if you want to do the paper scrapbook thing, so I have my handy dandy little box of crafting supplies, scissors, and these ones are really cool. I don't know if you can see this, but they have, see if I can get in and see, they're like scrapbooking scissors, so they've got the different ridges and patterns. So if you do look for scrapbooking supplies, they're great for creating a vision board. You've got markers and colored pencils and crayons, and you can do it very hands-on and very tangible. If you don't have a supply of magazines and you have a computer and a color printer, go online, find some images that speak to you. You look at that picture of a house and you say, that's what I want. You see someone that's running with a lot of energy and you say, that's what I want to do. And it's just, you want something that stirs your emotions. And it may be that field that has some pink flowers waving in the breeze. And that may be something that just sparks that emotion in you. And you can just print those out and then you can glue them onto your page. I like words and I like quotations. Those spark the emotions in me. And so I don't know where I put my other marker. As you're coming up with your topics, if a quote or song lyrics comes into mind, jot those down. So what you're trying to do here, and this is something that you can do over a few days, a few weeks, could be months, it could be years. I was telling MJ the other day, I don't typically keep a physical, tangible vision board, but I have my dreams in my head. And when I tap into them, it's like, yeah, that's what I want. And that's what boosts me to move forward towards what I want. And so that makes me think of sometimes you set a big goal. Many years ago, I had a dream that I wanted to be a professional speaker, do motivational seminars, self-development topics. And I was getting out there and I was doing it. I was earning some money doing it. And it was really exciting. And then I let my inner voices start to beat me down. After one or two comments, because I tend to ramble on and rattle on. It's just my style. It's who I am. And suddenly I started feeling like I wasn't enough, that I couldn't do it. And so then I started backing off. And it was harder to tap into that vision, into that dream, because I was letting those negative voices hold me back. Recently, meeting MJ, she talked earlier about the environment we're in, around the people that can support your dream. You want to share dreams with people. And meeting MJ just over a year ago, it's helped me to find that vision again. It was never gone because it was part of who I am. And the best visions and the dream for your future, those are the things that have been speaking to you for years, maybe decades, and you just haven't given them their time yet. Creating a vision board, allowing yourself to say, what if that were possible? What if I could do that? It's emotion-based. And when you start to say, oh, I could do that. And then you start to say, what were you thinking, Donna, saying that you would do this workshop on New Year's Day for 2 hours? What were you thinking? Those are the voices that are going to hold you back. And those are the voices that you have to start to say, you know, talk to the hand. I'm not following that one anymore. So as you create your vision board for leading a healthier life in 2021, dream big. It could be that marathon. I have run a half marathon. At one point in my life, I weighed just under 200 pounds. I topped off the scale that I saw at 198, and I couldn't walk the quarter mile around my block. And as MJ was just saying, I got out there and I walked for 5 minutes. I walked from mailbox to mailbox to mailbox. I wasn't avoiding pain. I was very comfortable with my sedentary lifestyle. I hadn't been to the doctor, so there were no medical warnings telling me you need to move more, you need to lose weight. It was just this quiet niggling in my heart that started to say, you've never been athletic. You've always been more of the brain person. I wonder if you could do it. And I said, whoa, I don't like to sweat. I am not going to sweat. Okay, don't sweat. And I started walking 5 minutes from mailbox to mailbox, not sweating. That's how slowly I was walking. And I made it around the block, and that sense of accomplishment, that feeling of pleasure was, oh my gosh, motivating. And then when I added distance to it, and I walked a couple of miles and I got home, and we had a glass door, and I walked up to the door and I was putting my key in it, and I saw my reflection in the door, and I noticed that my face was shiny. And I had been sweating. And you know what I did? Instead of saying, I don't like to sweat, I thought, ooh, this is kind of cool. Maybe sweating isn't so bad after all. And then I would sweat a little bit more and sweat a little bit more and start to anticipate that pleasure that came from sweating and seeing what my body could do. It wasn't long after that I competed in not one, but 2 triathlons in the summer of, I think it was 2008, which is swimming, bicycling, and running. They were sprint triathlons, shorter distances, but this was something that no one in their wildest dreams would have ever said I would do, because it was so not me. These are the visions I encourage you to tap into this year.
So I want to share, Nick put up a Canva link. So Canva, which is a great creative tool for making visuals, did a link. And so they have one for a vision board for 2021, which is really cool. I hadn't actually thought of looking at Canva. So what I did, because if anybody knows me, you know that my hand is like permanently implanted in the palm of my hand. So there's actually an app called Vision Board. And so what Donna and I had talked about was, you know, if you go through the exercise of doing sort of the bigger, more tangible poster board kind of vision board, then you could replicate that in an app. And so it's there at your hand. I will be honest with you guys. I still use paper and pen for my schedule. It drives Donna and my employees absolutely nuts that I use paper and pen for this. But in my book, I actually have a lot of my sort of motivation for moving to the next level. And a lot of my visioning comes in, if you notice, like this is my one that I've picked up for this year, but it has some like goal setting and, you know, what your successes are, what you're transferring from one to the next, how I'm looking ahead, what I'm doing right now. And you can actually kind of rate yourself and keep track of things. So that's where a lot of my visioning comes into play is in my book. I think the app for me personally, and this is where you get like what's going to fuel me, what's going to keep me motivated, is deciding, are you more that visual, I need a big poster on my wall, or am I the person that, my scheduler is my Bible and that's where I'm going to see it and that's where I'm going to keep it? Are you more like Donna, who spent some time grounding and being with herself and meditating, reflecting, and she pulls her dreams in, and that's what fuels her? So I think that really is the big message, is there's no right way or wrong way to do it. There's lots of tools for doing it, and being able to figure out what it is that's going to sort of fuel you and take you to that next place is really what's important here. It's not the destination, it's the journey that you're on. And that's where the emotions come in, is what sort of fires me up to go to that next level of these are my goals, this is what I want, this is how I envision my life. And this is how and this is what the end result is, but it's the journey of how you get there. That's the real sort of pleasure in all of this. So,
well, I love, Jim Rohn has a quote this is paraphrasing it, but you set goals not for achieving the goal, but becoming the person who can achieve that goal. So for me to set the goal to compete in a triathlon wasn't necessarily because I wanted to be in a triathlon, or that I, at that point in my time, put such emphasis on physicality like that, but it was to see if I could do it and to become the person who could do it. And by that, I mean, so to compete in a triathlon and to even just fill out paperwork for it, you're committing to swimming, bicycling, and swimming. So swimming, bicycling, and running a certain distance. And so if you're not a swimmer and you don't have access to a pool, well, you need to become the person that finds that resource. If you're not someone who owns a bicycle and you say you're going to compete in a triathlon, you need to be the person that can find a bicycle and then start training on it. And you need to make the life scheduling changes to fit that into your schedule. So you become a different person by achieving this goal. It is about the journey, because once you've gotten there, the day of the triathlon, if I had not even competed in them, I still would have gone on that journey to become the person who could. And so that's what's all pretty cool about it, because we do transition and transform. And you may find, so this was something I thought of earlier today, sometimes we set goals for ourselves that are goals but not visions. So a few years ago, Earl and I wanted to hike the 100-mile wilderness part of the Appalachian Trail. And I set a goal to lose 50 pounds because I was back up to around 180 pounds at that point. And I knew I wanted to lose weight because I didn't think I'd be able to hike for 14 days straight and not, just pass out on the trail and need to be rescued. Now, so I lost 50 pounds. We had a wonderful hike. It was amazing. But the pleasure of that experience and the need and the motivation faded away, and the pleasure of the sweets crept back into my daily living. And so I've gained more weight back and back and back. And I was thinking this morning, it would be nice if I could lose the weight the same way that I did back then, because it seemed very easy. But I can't, because I'm not the same person I was back then. I'm not running from the pain and the fear of dying on a trail or having to be rescued on a trail, because my physicality has improved so much that even at my current weight, I know that I could hike those 14 days straight, because I've learned that I can do that. And so if you set a goal, but you don't have the emotional connection to it, it's harder to keep maintaining it. Or you may try to do things the same way you've always done and they don't work. It's because you're not the same person. You've learned things from that journey, and so you can't just repeat the same journey. It has to be a new one with a slightly different destination. And even Even if we're hiking the same mountain, we're hiking Mount Washington, we're going up a different path. We'll get to the same place, but it's not the same journey because circumstances, hiking, the weather impacts things, just the way you're feeling, how much sleep you've gotten, how hydrated you are. All of these things impact every day, every single hike that you do. Any goal you set for yourself, even if you've accomplished it before, will be slightly different. You will be slightly different for achieving it. So with your vision boards, as you're looking for words and phrases and songs and images, find the things that connect with you on a heart level. If you look at a picture and it's like, yeah, that would be perfect, except for, don't use it. Because whenever you look at that picture, you're going to pick up on the except for. So either cut it out or find something else. We're not looking for almost there. We really want to hone in on what we want. It
So
reminds me.
Oh, go ahead,
ahead.
Donna. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if any of you have you seen the movie The Truman Show with Jim Carrey?
No.
That sound familiar? And he has this image of the woman that he loves. And so he's always buying fashion magazines and he's cutting out the eyes and the chin and the nose and the ears and the hair. And he's piecing together the image of who she is. And we can do that with our visions. You can find a picture that's close, but not quite, and just realize that it's close, but not quite. And don't try to accept that that's what it is. So go ahead, MJ.
All right, so this is completely off the cuff, but this is I guess when you get 30 years of mental health stuff behind you, you kind of do this. So for those of you who don't know, I did MST therapy for a number of years, and so that is an intensive in-home family therapy with juvenile offenders. But we use a very specific program. And so when I saw Donna's mind map, it sort of like triggered this ding, ding, ding for me. One of the things, like, we have given you a lot of information today, a lot for you to take back, but the question becomes, what do I do if I fall short of that? And so coming back from the recesses of MST is something that's called the do loop. So I'm hoping that you guys can see this because I'm really doing this off the cuff. So Donna had the mind map with the topic and then all of these things coming off from it, right? You create your vision board for living a healthier life. And so if we take that as a topic, what does living a healthier life look like for me? It looks like I don't want to get that specific. I'm just going to do it this way. Walk 6 miles every day. So now we've gotten down, we've broken down, and we've gotten pretty specific about what we're going to do. It doesn't say where I'm going to walk 6 miles, but it does say I'm going to walk 6 miles every day. Now I come back to my vision board, say 4, 5, 6 weeks from now, and I go, I haven't walked once, let alone 6 times a week. And so I start to think about, okay, so there's one of two ways you can go. Okay, like why am I not doing that? Is it really not that important to me? And it shouldn't be in my vision. It shouldn't be on my goals. It shouldn't be part of my action steps. Or do I go, I also take sort of that flush of, am I moving away from pain and towards pleasure? Is that what's impeding this? Or is there something else? So I look at this specifically and go, what is not allowing me to do that? And so this walking 6 miles becomes the center. So you walk 6 miles. What impacts that? I'm working 90 hours a week. That impacts that. Is that a choice? Is it a necessity? And you sort of start picking apart what is impeding you. Because I think that that's one of the things, at least in any of the workshops that I've attended that have to do with goal setting, that have to do with visions and vision boards, is we never sort of close that loop. And so can you take each of these action steps. And if they don't happen, then take those apart and say, what would or would not make me successful in this so that I can attain that goal? And if I change X, what in MST, what we use is what are the drivers? So one of the drivers for me might be that I'm working 90 hours a week. What can I change? Or what's one thing I can change with that would help me accomplish that goal? And can I take the next 2 weeks and see if that happens? See if I can make that little adjustment to be able to make that happen. Because if not, what happens is we get 6 months out and go, oh man, I haven't walked 6 miles a day. I failed at this whole thing. And you take the vision board and you set it aside. And that's exactly what we do. If you think of things historically, that's exactly what we do with New Year's resolutions. And it is the difference between people being successful at goal setting and attainment and not being successful at goal setting and attainment. So just taking that time to sort of, not only are you creating this vision for yourself, you're not only creating the goals and creating the action steps, but you're analyzing that to see how well you're doing. And that becomes the measurable piece. How are you going to define measurability? That's another workshop and it's coming up, but that really is I think that really kind of what we're getting to is how do you personally define what is healthier living to you? I haven't sat and thought about really in like the big scheme of things and in my mission for life, what does healthier living mean for me? What does that look like for me? And that's some time that I personally need to spend exploring and understanding what exactly it means for me. Does anybody want to jump in and have a comment or have anything that they want to add to that? Go ahead, Nick.
Can I share? I've been listening, I made a vision board
Okay.
on the Canva thing because I thought about the things going into this next year. Can I share my screen? Is that possible? No, I cannot.
You can't. Can you put a link?
I can put the file in there.
Let's see
Donna may be opening this up so that you can
if I can.
share screen from yours.
If you all click on the link that he posted into the chat box, it pops up.
Nick, I just made you a host, so you should be able to share now.
Awesome.
I think it's Alt S for sharing a screen. Don't hold me. I think that's what it is.
Look at all of the things that we know about Zoom now that we didn't know a year ago.
Does it let you? There it goes.
There you go.
Okay. So my question is, with I always think big ideas.
Uh-huh.
What would be my next step? Because they're kind of like tenets of things that I want to do. Where it's like be purposeful with my work time, be happy with the money that I have. But it's like I have three kind of very, very concrete things. And then I have 4 things that are a little more big picture. Like starting grad school is like, I could do that today. Like I could sign up for a class today. Playing more tuba, I can play tuba today. Like even running a marathon, like I have a running plan that I can follow today.
Yep.
But like, what do I do for like being a more understanding partner? Like taking steps into that, or like enjoying nature more, or being purposeful with my work time, or like being happy with my money, with the money I have.
Right. So what I would do, this is where that envisioning practice comes into play for you. I mean, I could sit here and tell you that of this, and it's helpful because I know you very well, of this, there's a few of these things that are really mindful based. There's some of them. So being a more understanding partner, even playing tuba more, enjoying nature and being a present father, even being purposeful in your work time. Those are all sort of, I would say, underneath the heading of mindfulness, because you're right. The mechanics of playing a tuba you can do, but being able to carve the time out to play it is something different. And that requires some mindfulness. So what
Can
I would
can I interrupt and add to that? Since
Sure.
we're on the tuba one, is also looking at how you expected the experience to go of playing the tuba. Because if you're approaching it as, yes, I have 5 minutes, I can pull out my tuba and I can play and just play, that's very different from, I should pull out my tuba because there's this one piece of music I'm working on and I just can't get it right. So it's keeping the attitude towards the pleasure that you want to experience, instead of when you start thinking about playing the tuba or going to grad school, focusing and saying, oh, what are the negatives? What are the downsides to that? Focus on what you'll get, because 5 minutes of playing the tuba joyfully is going to lift your spirits so much. And it only takes 5 minutes. Instead of saying, but if I'm going to pull it out, I want to be able to play for at least 30 minutes. It's that mindfulness of just enjoying what you have in the moment.
So by doing the envisioning practice of really setting with yourself and really thinking about what drives you and what that means for your personal vision statement, that's where you're going to find the answers to these. That's where you're going to find what fuels you into knowing and understanding how you then measure these. So, because being a present father is a great goal, it's a great overall arching vision of a specific aspect of your life, but having some measurability as to what that looks like for you. What does being a present father mean to you? Does that mean that you and Danny need to have an understanding as to whether or not you're completely nursing or you're going to do some bottle feeding because you want to have that experience? What is it about being a present father that you're going to measure defines what being a present father is? And I don't think that that's why the envisioning and that's why the intention setting is really important, because it finds out what's deep in your belly of what that looks like for you. And you're the only one that has the answer to that.
And
So,
experiment and play with them all. I was looking
Yeah.
at, I love the layout for this vision board.
I know.
Not cluttered. It's somewhat linear, but not quite. Enjoy nature more. But what does that mean to you? What is it you want to experience as you're experiencing nature more?
Well, I think that's why I chose these pictures. Like my favorite part of this summer in quarantine was, like Danny has a summer job that she loves, that she works at a brewery. So on those days, I hiked Mount Mansfield with Ruth a lot more. And I think that was why I picked that picture, was because it comes down to, I like spending time with my dog and getting her outside. And also my brother lost his dog yesterday, which was a really special dog to our family, and trying to spend time with this dog while she can still hike and still do those things.
Yeah. And you may find that there's a crossover. My gut instinct is, Nikki, that you're going to find that there's a crossover between being a present father and enjoying nature more with Ruth. Because you may find that is, as time goes on, that is exactly what fuels you, is being able to have those experiential times with your child, with your spouse, with your dog. But that goes to, you may be finding that what you're really doing here is, this is the vision board, but the question that I would pose to you is, are these stepping stones to get to that larger vision statement that you have for yourself, which is enjoying experiences with the things that are important to you more so than achieving some arbitrary vision that you think other people hold for you. Does that make sense? It's kind of, we have other people here and stuff, but obviously Nick is my youngest son. And, we've spent a year with my husband's health declining. And so we've approached it in a way of don't regret. And that's the way that I approached it with my family, was don't regret the time that you did or didn't spend with him. And I think that that's crossing over to lots of aspects of our lives. And I think that that's kind of across our family, is what really is important to us. And that is translating into the questions that you're starting to have about this. And especially as you embark on being a father yourself, those things are starting to sort of work at you and niggle at you. And so maybe your sort of vision for 2021 is, how do I become the man, the person, the teacher, the father, the husband that I envision? Maybe that's the bigger, because you're looking at really big picture stuff, and then you're honing down into the things that are on your vision board, and then you're going to take it down further to say, how do I measure that I've achieved that, and what are the steps that I can take to achieve that? Does that make sense? Okay. So Marie has asked, does the integrating through goals to figure out what would make them successful apply to each level of the process, vision to goal to action to intention, to tune them? Let's figure out. I think the short answer is yes, Marie. I think the bigger answer for me is, or the bigger thing that we look at is, how do we define those? Is it, I'm going to walk 10,000 steps and that's going to define that I am living a healthier life? Or is it that I have energy at 7 o'clock at night and I'm not looking for a cup of coffee? Is that how it is? Or is it, I feel, when I look in the mirror, I feel like I'm still 30, even though I have a son that's going to be 30. So it's taking it from very action focused to very feeling focused, or somewhere in the middle. And each of us have to define that for ourselves.
And if I can add, sometimes we have to define it and redefine it on a daily basis. So what may have felt like a satisfying experience yesterday, oh, I walked my 10,000 steps. I'm so excited that I walked my 10,000 steps. And then today, I only walked 8,000 steps. Hey, today I walked 8,000 steps because, I worked a 12-hour day and I only got 4 hours of sleep last night because my dog was sick, and all of, just life was happening, and I only got to walk 8,000 steps. We can look at that as, I only walked 8,000 steps, I failed, or I walked 8,000 steps because life threw a lot at me, and I'm going to take this as a win. And so it's allowing ourselves that grace and that kindness and the compassion that sometimes life gets in the way, but we're looking for the progress. Because if typically before you set the goal to walk 10,000 steps, you were averaging 3,000 steps a day, walking 8,000 steps is still a pretty good improvement. And so allowing yourself to move forward and recognize that anything that you're doing that's healthier, and I emphasize the IER, the part, we make so many poor health choices. And if we're consciously making something that's a little bit better, eating half a bowl of potato chips or half a serving of ice cream instead of the full, we should get credit for that and give ourselves credit for it. Everything doesn't have to be about sacrifice and denial. It can be about discovering the joy of making those compromises and making the smaller improvements, because long term, it's going to take you to where you want to go. It's just a slightly slower journey.
Yeah. My husband asked me this morning, he's like, Well, you should be really happy with the way that 2020 went. And there are certain aspects that I am extremely happy about with 2020. There are some aspects that, and I think this, why I'm telling this story is because I think it resonates with most of us, is that there's aspects that you would improve upon. There's aspects that you would, cut out altogether if you had a choice. And for me, I really thought, and he thought, that he could ask me that question and like the answer would be immediate and it would be really quick and it would be easy. And it wasn't. Like, I found myself kind of thinking over it many times in the next hour and 2 hours. And we would kind of come back to the conversation and say, like, overall, yeah, I'm thrilled with how 2020 went, despite the fact that we have a pandemic going on, despite the fact that there's been lots of challenges, and despite the fact that there's health stuff going on for you. But then there's these pieces and there's these parts. And so what I need to now do is kind of step back in and go, what about that? What was in my control? What could and so this is, the workshop coming up probably the end of February, 1st of March, is around limiting beliefs. And what sort of fuels my 2020 was, forgive me, I think I'm okay doing this. 2020 was an absolute shit show versus going, well, was it? Was it really? Is that my limiting belief because somebody else has told me that that's how I should feel about it? Or this little voice inside of me has said, well, you failed on this thing, so the 10 other things that you did, forget about it. Is that where I'm headed towards? And so I think for myself personally, because I had such a struggle with answering that question that John asked this morning, I need to step back and say, what are my limiting beliefs? Because I hit milestones in businesses that I never, 5 years ago, I never even thought were possible for me. And, my husband made it through a major surgery and several hits health-wise and got up this morning to go out the door. Like, there are things that I'm not measuring. And so that goes back to, how am I willing to define it versus how am I going to allow my limiting beliefs to define it? So
Well, and
that's
that's
a
where
very
the
long way
life
around it,
exercise-
but sorry,
Sorry.
Donna.
Sorry. That goes back to the wheel of life exercise, pulling that out and doing that every few months. Or if you're feeling like life is really at a bad place, and there were points in 2020 that many of us felt that way, with everything that was going on. But it gives you that opportunity to really sit down and evaluate what the strong points are and what the weaker points are, what's in your control, what's not in your control, and start to get that better sense of balance of where you really are. Because
Right.
I know a lot of people that have said the same thing. It's a big joke of, 2020, don't let the door kick you on the way out. But so many of us would also say it was a great year.
Yeah.
And it's allowing for that and not feeling shamed and shunned because you say that to people, because so many people just want to say it was the worst year ever. They're
Right.
just, in my opinion, being a little short-sighted and not giving it a chance.
So true. So I'm going to I'm going to give you one last thought, and then I just really want to open it up for anybody who wants to add something. We've got about 15 minutes left of our 2-hour span. So what I want to say here is, this is the message when I work with people doing their entrepreneur work and wanting to create a business plan. One of the things that I always tell people is, the business plan is not for the banker. The business plan is for you. It is a living, breathing document. And if I say nothing else today that you hear, creating a vision board, creating a goal, your goals, understanding who you are as a person and what motivates you to move towards those goals and achieving the life that you can see for yourself. All of those things are your business plan. They are your map. And it is a living, breathing document. It can adjust, it can change just the same as we do. and it needs to be viewed in that term. I would not have 3 successful businesses if I did not have a business plan that, yes, it has my vision for each one of those, and I make decisions based in those visions, but it adjusts. When the pandemic hit and I was faced with, only opening up 30% of my business and reopening it in July, and I had to adjust, I never saw myself bringing that business into the downstairs of my house and taking over the downstairs of the house. Never even would have considered it. However, because that's a living, breathing document, it has given me the ability to adjust and to shift. And so I just want to say, you guys all have that ability and should look at this as a breathing document and change it where you need to. Change it where it doesn't resonate with you, where it doesn't fuel your soul anymore. So,
well, that's what I was going to say, is sometimes by putting a goal down or a vision down in writing, or even just really focusing on, which I'm more of the mental internal person. Once I really start thinking about it and trying to make that emotional connection to it, sometimes I can't make the connection. And when I can't make the connection, it means that it's really not something that I want. So it could be something that I've kind of bought into, other people saying, oh, this would be great for you. You should do this, you should do that. And it sounds great on the surface. Superficially, it sounds great. But when I really tap into whether it's something I want to do, it's like, no, I really don't want to do that. And so when you start to try to make it tangible from the fluffy, fuzzy ideas that are running around in your head, and you start to make it into something, well, if I could really have this, what would it look like? How would I get there? Sometimes you decide it really isn't something that you want to do. And it's perfect opportunity to just let that go. There are some dreams that are always meant to be dreams, not reality. And just accept that.
Quick question. Would it be most appropriate, because when you're looking at the goals and some of them can be quite lofty, and I like how you did that, MJ, kind of took Nick's and put them into one category so they weren't as lofty, which was, I think, what most of us would do. Would it be better to have some goals that take longer to achieve and ones that are shorter so they have some successes within the time frame? Otherwise, if I have a goal and it's going to take a year or two, I may just kind of tag out. It's taking too long to feel like gratification from it. Would it be easier to have one big lofty goal and a couple smaller ones that?
Absolutely. I tend to be that way, Lori. I tend to be that person who needs to have that immediate gratification. And so when I do my wheel of life, I tend to take the things that I'm most happiest with and create some goals and vision around that, because I know I can attain it pretty quickly. Those are my 1 to 3 month goals. And then I work out those longer goals so that I'm taking action steps that I can measure in shorter time. So if I were going to take, so I'll take Nick's and I turn it on to myself. So all of a sudden I want to run a marathon. What I would need to do is I probably would have to set out for at least a year, 18 months. And I would have to have, like, in March, I can run Mary's Walk. I can do the 5K part of Mary's Walk. Like, that would be something I could do. So that would be a goal that I would set for myself. It would be underneath that higher arching vision of health and wellness, but it would be a goal that I know that I could attain at St. Patty's Day. And then maybe it is by Labor Day. I think there's, even 4th of July, there's the Old Port Run, which I know has a 10K in it. So from March to July, I could do a 10K. And I could feel comfortable doing that. And I would have attained that, instead of going, oh, I'm not running the Boston Marathon anytime. It'll be 2 years before I get to do that. And then, who knows whether or not Boston will be open. And, I may never get to do that. So it's really, for me, to keep that motivation. But I know that I have to have immediate gratification. It's kind of like my whoopie pie. I have to have something that comes up really quickly so that I keep that motivation. Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
So another thing is, Most of us don't have just one goal. We don't set one goal that's 2 years out. We have a lot of other goals. We have the Wheel of Life examples for the different categories. As I talked about, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial goals. So we have all of these things going on, and there's all of these areas in our lives where we want some improvements. So you have the goal, we'll use the marathon goal. You have the marathon goal, but oh my gosh, my career is really I want to get a promotion and I have all of these courses I have to study. So while you are running, you're listening to books on tape, books on tape, yeah, like Audible books, you're listening to something that will improve your career opportunities. You're learning while you're running, or you meet people and you find people that are friends and you want to build up your social network. And so you start walking and you start running with people with a similar interest. They may not want to run a marathon, but that doesn't mean they couldn't go with you for a 1 mile or a 2 mile run. And so you start to incorporate so that it doesn't seem so segmented and compartmentalized. Everything starts to merge together where it is your essence of who you are. You are a runner, you are a career person, you are a family person, you are all of these things, you are a student. You're doing all of these things and you're kind of doing them at the same time. And so you don't want to go for a run, but I really wanted to listen to that podcast episode about this. Perfect time to do that is when you're running. So you can make goals work together. They don't have to be exclusive.
Perfect. I'm looking to see, so I know that there's a bit of a delay from here to Facebook, but I'm wondering if there's anybody in the Facebook group that it has anything that they want to input. If you do type it in the comments, I can see it. I'm actually monitoring the Facebook group. So please, throw out whatever it is that you're thinking of. There's been a lot of information given out, and I'm more than happy to respond to that. So, and anyone else have some thoughts as we kind of come down into the last few minutes of this?
And I do have some other worksheets, and Nick, I love that you tossed out the Canva link and talking about that. That's something that I'll be adding into the group early next week, some extra links to help you get started doing this, to make one for yourself. I love Canva and doing things electronically. It's fun.
If anyone is interested, let me know, because I would be interested in leading a deeper envisioning meditation. If you're interested in that, just shoot me a message or say something on the Facebook group, and I'll schedule a time for that. I think it's an important piece to all of this, and I'm happy to do that in the next few days. I have a few days that are a lot of time spent at home. I actually have made my commitment for the year was to really take and be able to focus on 2 of the businesses, and so my commitment to that has been that I am taking the next 2 months off from my cleaning business, and I'm going to pull my hands back, have them close by, but I'm going to pull my hands back and let my crew take that and run with it. So I have a little more flexibility in my schedule. So I'm looking for this this time to work on some stuff interpersonally for myself, as well as for presence of mind and another business that my husband and I have. So, and Marie has asked, would you also consider doing a consult as a deeper dive on individual vision boards, or group one for a few of us? And the answer is yes to both of those. I would absolutely love to do some one-on-one work with people, and I would definitely do a group process. And I'm sorry that we can't get you off on mute, Marie. I know that that's frustrating. But it's both of those options are available. I love this work, and I love doing this work because it really is about people finding who they are. And it's one of the reasons that I walked away from traditional therapy, is because I want people from like myself, I want to be looking towards the future and what I can accomplish. And, we can't change our past. So it's all about moving in that forward direction. So I would love that. So please let me know if someone's interested, if you're interested, and we can explore that, whether it's a group or it's an individual work. Okay, anything? I'm not seeing anything from the Facebook group. If anyone, gets off from this call and decides, they've got more questions, shoot me a messenger message, shoot me a text, post it, because somebody else may be having the same question. And the same, I'm going to speak for Donna, that goes to both of us. So any last words, Donna?
Dream big. Don't hold back.
Absolutely. Wonderful. One last round. Anybody have a question?
Just a suggestion, MJ, you should
Sure.
put on a t-shirt. This is my whoopie pie.
This is, I think that's a great suggestion. Nick, Mother's Day is coming up. All right, wonderful. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys being
Thank you
here.
for being here, everyone.
We do have a couple of more workshops coming up that Donna and I have planned. There's 2 more. One is loosely entitled, Are Your Smart Goals Dumb? And this is about being so tangible with, I'm going to walk 10,000 steps every day versus I'm going to feel in a certain way. And then we're going to do something on manifesting, and we are going to definitely do something on limiting beliefs. So we've got some coming up, and we'll be getting more information out about those. For those of you who we are not seeing, thank you so much for being here. I know Danielle was here. We did have Alyssa here for a while. I think she had to jump off.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Happy New
Bye,
Year.
guys. Same to you. Happy New Year.
Bye.